Diamond Drugs, Philadelphia Street, Indiana, where we care about care.
It is the voice of Indiana County, WCCS 101.1 FM, AM 1160, WCCSradio.com. That guy over there is Bob Pollock, causing all kinds of trouble this morning ever since he got in the door moments ago. As we talk with Bob, our conversation brought to you by Marcus & Mack, voted best personal injury law firm in the Best of Indiana County contest. Marcus & Mack, a law firm representing injured people. And if you have a question for Bob, you can give him a call. 479-1160 or 349-WCCS. Mr. Pollock, I'm guessing folks ought to be able to get their garden in sometime in August, because this is really, really wet. It's going to be a while, isn't it?
It's amazing how fast things can turn around, though.
Yeah.
We went from having a couple little windows there, openings, chances to do things, and boom, now we're in a little bit of a wet spell here.
Yeah, we've got another week of it coming, too.
It can change in a hurry.
Mm-hmm.
This time of year, we can warm up. We can, just a few days in the 70s or even popping into the 80s. I'd prefer not to have that yet from a plant growing perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And with a little wind, things can dry out in a hurry and give us another chance to get started.
Yeah. One of the things that has not slowed down, in addition to the rain, is the dandelion crop. And folks are wanting to do things to their lawns right now that typically they would do. And in my case, I've got a barn driveway that I need to get treated. That ain't happening either, because I need it above 65 degrees with two or 3 days of sunshine in order to even put that stuff on there. But that kind of patience is not easy to practice.
Right.
And staying away from that garden is hard to do.
Things, the weeds continue to grow, don't they?
Yes, they do.
Despite the weather. They're well conditioned to do that. And so, we'd like to get, an application in that case on, sooner rather than later when the weeds are small.
Mm-hmm.
And so we get delayed a little bit.
Yeah.
And oftentimes we need, mostly for that type of weed control, we need enough hours to let it dry on the plant and get on there. We need a plant that's growing, and then just enough time to get that material dried on the plant, and that usually will be sufficient. Now, if we get heavy rains, half an inch, 2 inches of rain after that will wash off some of that. So
yeah. One of the things, and not that I'm worried for their well-being, but the insect world is obviously affected by the fact that things aren't growing in the way that normally they would be, but not all that negatively when it's wet like this, huh?
No, they'll still function as long as the temperatures are there. They're going to continue, and they kind of match themselves a bit to the plant where it is. And they can hang out long enough and if the weather's warm enough, and eggs will hatch. We have a number of insects that overwinter as in the egg stage, and so they're just waiting for, essentially enough growing degree days.
Spotted lanternfly among them.
Right there, that's among them. If we think on European red mites, that's one that can attack some of our fruit trees, as well as other things, ornamental trees as well. Those typically overwinter as the egg stage on the bark, and you can learn to recognize what those egg masses, they'll just be in the little cracks and crevices on the bark, and hiding there, and right where a branch attaches to a larger branch, at the crotch of a branch, there'll be clusters of eggs there. And they're reddish in color, hence the name red mite. But those will kind of match themselves to when the tree is coming out, leafing out, which they are now. Another disease, apple scab, that's starting to function. We've had enough wetting periods. In that case, we need wetting periods. We need temperature range and wetting periods. And we're in that, both the temperature and the moisture, that those spores that are just laying there waiting for the opportunity to grow and we have the weather conditions to do that now, and the trees are starting to leaf out, so those scab spores will be released. Typically, they're on the ground. They'll be down in the ground, on the surface of the ground, on the residue maybe of leaves that weren't picked up in the fall from the trees, or ones that can blow in, or just crab apples in the yard. Ornamental crab apples get the same thing in varying degrees, but those will be released and start to make infections on the tree leaves.
I think that was one of my favorite Frankie Avalon songs, Crab Apples on the Lawn. Also,
we could put that in the background, right?
We think about other things, and one of the things that we hear a lot now in the news is the reemergence of cicadas all over the United States. So now we just had cicadas out 2 or 3 years ago, and we made a really big deal about them, and they were very loud, and they seemed to be everywhere. But there are cicadas coming out across the United States, not necessarily right here in our backyard, but not so far away.
Right. They're all set up in different broods. So every year somewhere there's probably a brood hatching. And, of course, there's the 13-year group and the 17-year group groups. And so they come out at different places in spots around the United States. So when those things get on the national news, we assume that, they're everywhere. Well, they're not. They're usually
they're elsewhere.
A little more defined areas, And everybody, a lot of people get their chance to experience them over time.
Yeah.
But, that's one we're used to seeing on a periodical basis.
We take a look as well at some of our favorite greenhouses. I know Yarnix has set their opening date as April the 17th for when the store will be opening, and we can't wait. But those producers right now, the big producers in our area, how they do what they do, I have no idea. I know the greenhouses are they're okay, they're in good shape, but out in the fields, they're still managing to get it done, and it amazes me.
Yeah, you got to be ready when those little windows of opportunity are there, and you got to be after it. Because if you miss it, you might miss 2 weeks. And that's a lot. That's the difference between getting something in the ground, whether it's a seed or a transplant, and it taking off and starting to grow, or being delayed for that 2 weeks, which can really, foul things up. If you have a certain target area, and we do. You think about all the flowers. Everybody is so conditioned that we've got to have flowers on certain dates.
Decoration Day is coming.
Right, yeah.
Mother's Day is coming.
Yeah, so those holidays, and other times. So you're always targeting to try to do that. And whether you're growing inside or outside, inside still has its challenges because you've got to manage temperature and humidity. So even though we can keep the rain out, it still can get very humid in a greenhouse. And so you've got to, and different types of greenhouses are set up differently. So we have ones that can be set up to be highly automated, where there's sensors in there that will help to control those things. So when the humidity gets to a certain level, there's a tool that measures that, and then that kicks on a fan to run and the vents to open so that we can get that moisture out. Because when we have moisture and humidity, then we can run into disease issues, whether it be powdery mildew, damping off, and there's some other ones that we can happen if that's not managed right. And then the temperature, you're trying to have a little higher temperature in the day and a lower temperature at night for most things. So you have triggers there that either the fans will come on when it gets too warm and start to move that hot air out, and then if it gets too cold, then you've got the furnace coming on to warm things up. So it can be quite a chore. And then we've got what we call high tunnels. And then there's also low tunnels and all those combinations. But high tunnels typically are just a roof, plastic roof, set over a piece of ground.
Little dome.
Right, and we're still growing in the soil that's in that field or area versus growing in potting material. So that's a whole different, and there you don't usually have, you might not even have electricity in that type of a greenhouse.
Yeah.
You're relying on Mother Nature. You're just trying to be able to warm things up a little bit quicker, be able to get your crop in earlier, but you're still working with the weather conditions that we're provided with.
Yeah. I don't understand how, A, they manage soil when it's this wet in order to get crops in. B, the economics of what happens when there's a flood that washes out an entire field. Economically, that has to be just devastating. And C, how they can afford to put gas in a tractor. You figure all of the big tractors that our farmers are operating in order to feed us and everything, and the money that goes into it, and how it just, without having any say-so, the price can double, triple in the course of a growing season. How they do it, I don't know. Yep. It's an amazing industry that it's able to survive the way that it does. And so it's a testament to the hard work, I think.
Absolutely.
Big on them.
A lot of things that are out of your control. You try to control them the best you can. You've got to work with them the best you can. It could be $750, $1,000 just to fill up the tank on your tractor.
Yeah.
Just like that. And you can burn that.
Go ahead and do that every day.
In a hurry. Yeah. So, it's always been a challenge and continues to be a big challenge to make it all happen.
Big salute to all those farmers and their families who are working
the resilience, I'm telling you, the resilience, the ability to go from, this was plan A, and then you end up at plan D, but you got to run all those scenarios.
In a half an hour.
You're moving quick and and a lot of advantages we have around here a little bit is we have hills and valleys. And so we can kind of target those hills, typically have different soil types than our soils in the valley or creek bottom soils, for instance. Those are going to be, those are really fertile soils along the creeks and streams, but they can be a little heavier soils. They can take longer to dry out. They can also get flooded. And then you take our hilltops, which oftentimes are shaly soil, and so then those can dry out much quicker, and so that's where you tend to target first, and you change your plans. You may have wanted to plant here on this farm, on this field, but no, we can't do that because of the weather, so we got to go over here, get this in, and then we'll come back to that whenever we can.
There's a lot of times where the hilltop slides down and becomes the hill bottom, too, when you get weather like this. Just like that. It's okay. New plan in place. Well, there you go. A little fascinating farm conversation here this morning with Bob Pollock. We appreciate that. Thanks.
You're welcome.
It is the voice of Indiana County. It's WCCS 101.1 FM, AM 1160, and WCCSradio.com. Hey, Fox News coming up next, top of the hour. We're going to follow that with news from our WCCS newsroom with Josh. It's a minute and a half away.
Do you ever have questions in your life? Questions that you are searching to find answers to? Hi, I'm Pastor Ben Blowers with the Indiana Wesleyan Methodist Church, and I want to invite you to listen to our church-sponsored program, The Voice of Victory, every Sunday morning at 7:30 a.m. on this station, AM 1160.